When you open up Houdini, it usually looks something like this. We got 3 different tabs and then some more tabs behind each tab. We will mostly be using 4 of them: the scene view, the network view. This is where we will build the node tree, the parameters, and then the geometry spreadsheet. The geometry spreadsheet will show the information flowing through the node tree. Let's start by simplifying the user interface a little bit. So I'm going to hide this shell toolbar up here. Then I'm going to close the tabs we don't need for now. I'm going to keep the geometry spreadsheet. You can always bring a tab back by pressing the plus icon and choose it from the drop-down. If you want, you can split a tab into 2. For example here, you can say split pane, top, bottom. And if you would like it to have the geometry spreadsheet down here, you can right-click. And inside of inspectors, you can choose the geometry spreadsheet. I personally prefer a bit more space for my nodes, so I like to close the parameters. And then to get the parameters in the network view, I place the mouse above the network view and press P. The parameters are up here. They're very small and they're empty right now, so they're not very noticeable. If you want to try different user interface presets or save this one, you can go here. And to save this one, you can choose Save Current Desktop As. Give it a name and choose Save. Now notice up here it says OBJ. If it doesn't, click it and choose OBJ. That is object, meaning that you are in the object context. And notice the word object is written in the network view. So to put down an object, place the mouse above the network view and press Tab. Start typing, for example, geometry. Press Enter or choose geometry from the drop-down and place it by clicking the network view. Now we can double-click this geometry node. Notice the path is now obj/geo1, and in the network view, the word geometry is written where object used to be before. That means you're now on geometry level where you can model the surfaces of the object by building a node tree. Let's go back to the object level. If you press Tab again, make sure your mouse is above the network view and go to Geometry. All of these are geometry objects. If you choose one and put it down, for example, box, you can move, scale, and rotate this object here on object level. But if you want to do more, you have to go inside it into geometry level. Think of these nodes up here as containers for geometry. Now let's delete this box, and before we go on, let's save the scene. File, Save As. Find a good place for it. I'm just going to put it on the desktop. I'm going to create a new folder for my project. I'm going to call it my_project. And then I'm going to create a new folder for the Houdini files. I'm just going to call it HIP. And in here, let's call it my_project. And then it's always a good idea to include the version number. So I'm going to say .v001 and SF. Now let's create something inside of this geometry object. So double click to dive inside and put down a line. I'm going to press Tab and write line. The line has 2 points, point 0 and point 1. You can see them in the geometry spreadsheet, and next to them their position P. If you want, you can increase the amount of points and see them stack up in the geometry spreadsheet. Each point has its position next to it. Now put down a circle, press tab and write circle. To see the circle in the scene view, you have to move the blue flag. The node with the blue flag is the node you'll see in the scene view. Change the orientation to ZX and set the center to 0, 0, 1. And now increase the divisions of the circle. Put down a remesh node, press tab and write remesh. Connect the circle to the left input of the remesh node and remember to move the blue flag. Now to place the circle on the line, we can use a copy to points node. Press tab and write copy to points. Connect the circle to the left input and the line to the right input. And then move the blue flag. Instead of copying the circle onto all of the points of the line, we can just scatter a few points on the line. So back up here, put down a scatter node, move the blue flag to see the points, and let's scatter 5 points. To get a more randomized placement, untoggle relax iteration. And then try different global seed values to find a good distribution. I would like the leaves to be smaller, so I'm gonna go up here after the remesh node, and I'm gonna put down a transform node. Move the blue flag to see it, and take the uniform scale down. Then I want the circle to be more oval, so I'm going to scale it down in X. To get the slider, middle mouse click, then choose an increment. I'm going to choose 0.01 and then move to the left. To look at the circle and the line together, let's put down a merge node. Plug the circle into it and the line. And then move the blue flag. To move around in the network view, you can middle mouse click and hold. And to frame the geometry in the scene view, you can place the mouse above the scene view and press F. Now to vary the direction of the circles, let's return to the points we scattered and give them an attribute N. So put down an attribute adjust vector node, so press tab and write attribute adjust vector. Place it, move the blue flag, change the attribute name to N. Notice you got a new attribute in the geometry spreadsheet. Now let's move the blue flag to the copy to points node. And if you change the constant value, you'll see the leaf change accordingly. So this is the attribute on the points, and if you want to visualize it, you can do that. And if you want to template the leaf as you do this, you can press the pink flag on the copy to points node. But instead of using a constant, we can adjust it with a random. Now each point gets a random N value based on their point number. Change the range values to 0 center to get both positive and negative values. And then change the seed for different variations. Let's move the blue flag to the merge node. And try different seeds. Maybe something like this. And we might want all of them to point a little bit more upwards. So I'm just going to put down another attribute adjust vector node. and change the name again to n. And notice the operation is set to add, so this value will be added on top of whatever n was before. I would also like the leaves to face more upwards, and to do that we can use another attribute. So I'm going to put down another attribute adjust vector. And in this case I'm going to set the attribute name to up and set the constant value to 0, 1, 0. And this will make all the leaves face upwards. If you don't want to see the shading on the back of the polygons, you can uncheck Tint Back-Facing Polygons. To give the circle some more shape, I'm going to use a mountain node. So press Tab and write mountain. And move the blue flag. I'm going to go to fractal and take the roughness to 0. And then I'm going to adjust the element size. Right now the element size is 1, which is bigger than the circle. So let's just take it down a bit. Maybe something like this. And then let's take down the amplitude as well. Something like this. Maybe we can take the element size up a little bit. Try different offsets. And then maybe add a little bit of roughness back. But this is going to give us some problems because the leaf doesn't land at the origin anymore. So now when we copy it, the circles end up inside the line. We can fix this with a single line of wax. So let's go back to the mountain node. And look at the points. What if we take the position of point number 36 and subtract it from the position of all the other points? Then the circle will land at the origin again. But first, instead of having it be point number 36, let's rearrange the point numbers to have it be point number 0. That way, in case we change something later, the system won't break. So I'm going to put down a sort node after the mountain node. And move the blue flag. And then in point sort, I'm going to set it to sort by set. And now you can see that point 36 is now point number 0. And now put down an attribute wrangle. So I'm going to press Tab and write attribute wrangle. Move the blue flag. And in here I'm going to write v at p is equal to v at p minus, and then to pick up the position of point number 0, I'm going to use a point expression. And then if you start the bracket, you can see what it wants. And in this case, it wants the geometry. So the geometry comes through the first input. So that will be 0. Then it wants the name of the attribute, which is P, this one. And then it wants the name of the point, which is point number 0. So let's write it. Input number 0, attribute is called P, and then the point number is 0. Close the bracket and put a semicolon. And you can see the circle has moved to the origin. Now move the blue flag to the merge node to look at it all together. And you can see that the circles are no longer inside the line. One more attribute that we can add to the points is a p-scale attribute. The circles will be scaled as they are copied to the points based on the p-scale attribute. So let's put down another node, but in this case, it will be attribute adjust float. So press tab and write attribute, adjust, and this time choose float, this one. And as you put it down, you can see that the attribute name is already p-scale. And if you move the blue flag to the copy to points node now, you can see the leaves have disappeared. And that is because the p-scale attribute value is 0. So let's increase it. But instead of using a constant and scaling the leaves uniformly, let's use a random number. And then select a good minimum value for your random, for example 0.6. And then you can try different seeds to try different variation. And you can also remap the values. So if you want more smaller values and then just a few higher values, you can do something like this. Now for the line, we should give it a little bit of a volume. So I'm going to put down a polywire node, press tab and write polywire. Give it some more divisions to make it more circular, and then decrease its radius. So now at the end of the node tree, I'm going to put down an output node, connect it, and this way, no matter where we place the blue flag, whatever is in the output node is going to be what is visible on object level and also what will be rendered. Now that I have my system, I'm going to make some final adjustments to get a better idea of what the branch actually looks like. I am going to change the shading to smooth shaded, and I'm going to revisit the scatter node. I'm going to try different seeds. I think I want to toggle again relax iterations to get a more even out distribution for the leaves. Maybe something like this. Then I'm going to revisit the direction of the leaves. Let's try different seeds for that as well. Maybe something like this. And then we added this value to n, so I think this is still good. And then the size variation of the leaves. We can again try different seeds for that. And then on the other side, we might want to revisit the mountain node. For example, maybe we want the leaf to have more waves or less. And then we can try different offset values just to see different versions of the same pattern. I was pretty happy with the offset we had before, so I'm just gonna do Ctrl Z. And then maybe for the leaves, maybe you wanna increase the remesh, so you can take the target size value down. This is the size of the triangles. To get the wireframe, you can place the mouse above the scene view and just press W. If you're wondering about what any node does or what a parameter of a node does, for example this remesh node, you can always look at the help documentation for the node. So just select the node and click the question mark in its parameters. So in this case, the remesh node recreates the shape of the input surface using high quality triangles. Now to render the branch, I'm going to go into Solaris, but first let's save the scene. So I'm just going to say File, Save. And then click Object and choose States. Now that we are in Solaris, we will need to import the branch. So again, press Tab and write scene import. Then in Force Objects, I am going to choose the object node with the branch. This one. And we have the branch. I'll need the camera as well. So in the scene view, I'm going to find the good angle. Then I'm going to go up into no cam and choose new camera. And this has created a camera. Right now, the scene view is locked to the camera, so if I move in the scene view, that will also move the camera. To unlock it, press the lock icon, and now if you move, you actually exit the camera. So I'm going to go back into no cam and choose my new camera here. I'm going to pull it a little back, maybe a little bit up too. Maybe you want to think about the angle too, but I think this is good. And notice here on the right side, a new node has been created, camera. And notice the blue flag has been moved onto this camera. If you move the blue flag up here, you will lose the camera. This is still just the scene view, but let's change it to the actual render. So in perspective, I am going to change the Houdini VK to Karma CPU. And now we have the rendered image. To lit the scene, we will need some lights. There are a lot of options in here, but I personally like to go to object level and in here put down a skylight. This will create two nodes, a sunlight and an environment light. Back in Solaris, we don't have these lights yet, but in the scene import node in Force Objects, I can hold down Ctrl and choose these two lights as well. And now we have both of the lights. If you don't want to see the light geometry in the scene view, you can turn it off here. And we can also hide the grid here. I want to adjust the lights a little bit, so I'm going to pin the view inside of Solaris and go up on object level. And then on the skylight, I am going to rotate the sun a little bit. Maybe something like this. And over here too, something like this. And then I would like some softer shadow, so I'm going to increase the angular size. Let's give the branch some texture. So here I'm going to press Tab and write Material Library. Put it down, connect it, and move the blue flag. I can use this node to add materials and assign materials. Toggle Assign to Geometry and set the geometry path to the branch. If you write a /, you will get a list of all the objects at this point in the node tree. The name of the branch object is Geo1, unless you change the name, but I kept it as Geo1. And then choose the mesh. Notice the material VOP has a star in it. That means whatever material exists inside this node will be assigned to the branch. So let's double click to dive inside the material library. And now we can open up the material palette to try out some materials. Drag and drop some materials into the material library to see how they look on the branch. But finally, I'm just going to go with a principal shader. So let's give the branch some green color. And then I would like to take the reflection down a little bit. And then I would like to add some displacement. I'm just going to use a noise displacement. I'm going to take the roughness to 0 and then find some frequency I like. I'm actually fine with this frequency. Maybe we can go a little bit higher. Add a little bit of roughness back. And then let's take the amplitude down. Way down. 0.02. Try different offsets. Doesn't really change a lot. Yeah, maybe 0.01. I need to visit the color a little bit. Maybe a bit more greenish. Yes, let's just keep it like this for now. And let's go back upstairs outside of the material library. And now we can render. So I'm just going to press Tab and write Karma. And this will give you the Karma setup option, which gives you 2 nodes. I'm gonna connect the Karma node and move the blue flag. Make sure that you have the right camera selected here. If you're importing a camera, this won't update, so you just have to make sure to choose it in here. You have the resolution, and then you have all the rendering options. And here in output picture, you can see where the file will be written out to. $hip is the folder that has your Houdini file. Render is a folder that if it does not exist, it will be created. And then hip name is the name of this hip file, in this case, my project 001. And then the $OS is the name of this node. So I'm going to change it to, let's just call it branch. And the $F4 is the frame number with the padding of 4. If you middle mouse click output picture, you can see what the expression evaluates to. And it's my project, hip, render, and then this is the name of the file. Now the only thing left to do is to go to the next node and hit render to disk. And you'll have a new folder, render, next to your project file. And inside you have the rendered image. And let's open it up in Mplay. So back in Houdini, I'm going to go to render, Mplay, load disk files. And then inside of render, I'm going to select the image, load, and this is the rendered branch. To get a better idea of what is happening inside of Solaris, you should take a look at the Solaris scene graph tree. So open up a new tab, and in here go to Solaris and choose the scene graph tree. Here you have all the objects that live inside your Solaris node trees. And if you go to the first node and select it, you can see at this point you only have the branch and the lights. Then at the next node, you have the camera as well. And then you'll have a material library. And this one adds a render section. You can look inside. Here you have a mesh. Then inside of materials, you have your shader. You can also use the scene graph tree to drag and drop objects into parameters. For example, in the material library node, you could have just taken the geo and dropped it into here. Or taken the mesh and dropped it into the geometry path. Now if you go back onto object level and into the geometry context, and I'm going to just let go of the pin here. So you can think of the nodes as operators working on information that's flowing down through the node tree. The first node of the tree is typically where the geometry is created or brought into the scene, and then the nodes that come after make changes to or add information to the nodes above them. In this case, we have a circle. We remeshed the circle, we scaled it, we added a value from a noise pattern to its P attribute to give it some shade. We sorted the point number, and then we did a little bit of math to move the leaf to the origin. And then on the other side, we created a line. We scattered some points onto this line, gave the points some attributes, and copied the circles onto the points. And then after giving the line some width with a polywire, we merged it with the circles, and we have a branch. If you have any questions, write them in the comments and I will reply to you. If you have created a branch or something else from the system, please send it over and I might feature it in a future video. And if you're still here, thank you for sticking with me till the end.